Here is Bob. He owns a business. Bob had his uncle's cousin's nephew build him a website. Unfortunately, that website looks like a website that was built in Bob's uncle's cousin's mom's basement. Don't be like Bob. Let a professional build your website. If you want an affordable website that looks expensive and a website that can be found by your customers, visit don'tbelikebob.com and let them know you heard about them on this show to get 10% off.
Sioux Empire Podcast 137, Men Who Care with Bryan Anfinson.
A pathless wilderness, wild, rugged, that was
South Dakota.
a hardy frontier, far from the paths of civilization,
Why die on Mars when you can live in South Dakota?
where fortune beckoned with a glittering smile,
I was hauling pigs on the interstate. You were in a red car having a problem with your shirt.
and life hung on the quickness of a trigger finger.
Podcast Palooza. I thought you said you were going to say something.
The Sioux Empire Podcast.
Everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Sioux Empire Podcast. I am your host, Robert Mailing, and this is the Sioux Empire Podcast, the quirky but harmless podcast that's all about Sioux Empire news, comedy, music, and culture. Joining me, as always, is co-host Seth Glover.
I move my hands like I'm playing the piano, but really I'm just moving my hands to all of the sounds.
It's pretty cool. It's like he's got sound powers, like on a... Oh, I don't... No spoilers for Umbrella Academy. Sorry. I, stayed up until, 3 a.m. last night watching it. It just came out. And it was pretty good. Pretty good. Anyway, also joining us is Bryan Anfinson.
You got it right.
Boom! I got one.
We had to coach you, though. We got it.
Don't get cocky, kid.
Really, though.
He's with Men Who Care, and we'll be talking with him a little bit later in the program about the nonprofit he's here to talk about. But first, let's jump right into some headlines.
Intro, it's automation. Back in the 50s, they would have had a whole orchestra for that.
It's true. Even in the 60s, they would have just, a whole orchestra and a side building, just, waiting for little sound cues.
That's a future headline now.
I don't get that one. Anyway.
What's there to get?
Our first headline here's where I'm going with the headlines this week, folks. I'm going to cover two stories right off the bat that we can't do justice to here on the podcast here with our little 20-minute, 30-minute news spiel. So I'm putting them in the show notes with links because I feel like they're news stories that didn't get enough attention that are going on in our state and with the people that we live with and our community. I feel like they're things that should be on the front burner for a group that's supposed to fix things and I know this is crazy idea, the state legislature, they're in session right now, passing bills, supposedly, should be doing something about some of these issues.
Should be doing something.
And in the second half, we're going to talk about what they're doing instead. So, let's go ahead and jump right into the first headline here. So, South Dakota, it turns out, is one of 5 states where being mentally ill can get you put in jail. They just jail the mentally ill instead of putting them in a, facility that can handle that sort of thing. And I thought this was an interesting story that I feel like kind of got buried under some other stuff that the Argus Leader did a whole in-depth dive about this story and lots of interviews with different people who've experienced the trauma of having a child who's very forceful, and instead of sending them to a specialized facility where they handle a child who can be a little violent and disruptive. They send them to the county lockup or juvenile detention centers and stuff like that, just like they were, they'd been caught selling drugs or something like that. They get treated exactly the same way, apparently. And I think that's awful. We're one of only 5 states where that happens. And I feel like we could do more. So once again, I can't do justice to this story. Argus Leader did a fantastic deep dive on it. So take a look at that, and just bear that in mind when we get to the legislative part and like what they, choose to spend their time on instead. Part 2 is about the poverty amongst children in South Dakota. I know we're hitting it off with the light, funny topics right off the bat.
It's good to keep it light and fresh.
Absolutely.
It's what the people need.
Brian's just like, good God, what did I get myself into here? But, no, the second story, same deal, except it's South Dakota News Watch, the nonprofit that does, like, deep dive investigative journalism here in South Dakota. They covered the fact that we have had a massive explosion of kids that are in poverty and food stamps ever since the Great Recession. And unlike most of the country where those numbers have stabilized a little bit and like come back up out of poverty, South Dakota, we have a whole generation that is stuck in poverty instead. There was no bounce back for the lower middle class here in South Dakota, apparently. There's still, an increase of 50,000 children during the Great Recession, and they're staying in that area. They have an interesting quote in there from Matt Gasson, the CEO of Feeding South Dakota. When the recession hit, it just pushed them all into the abyss, and they could no longer make ends meet. And then he goes on to say that there's an even bigger portion of those who didn't make it out of poverty and are still being left behind. So, once again, I feel like this is an issue that the state legislature could be, doing something about, or maybe working on addressing, even if they were talking about it. But, I'm a crazy person here who thinks that, government should actually work for the people that send it there and whatnot. But, whatevs. So, let's get into the funnier part.
Okay. School buses on fire? What's next, Rob?
I know. I'm just...
Why did
another
I
mass
read
shooting?
the show notes?
I'm just a ray of sunshine this week. What can I say?
Keep it bright and cheery, like Robin says.
Yeah. So, have you guys been following this story is so weird. This is my first state legislature story. So, when you talk about those serious issues that I was talking about off the front here, instead, here's what your state legislature's been working on. So, a mentally ill person from Tennessee came and used some useful idiots in the state legislature to bring up a bill that he's tried to pass in other states that has been soundly rejected by courts and sane people everywhere, where what he wants to do is he sued Apple on these grounds. He wants it so that any electronic device that you buy or sell has to block all pornography. And there could be no exceptions. It must, it's like nothing can get through. It has to err on the side of censorship.
That's how computers work, there's always a definite you can't get in there.
Oh yeah, there's this is clearly written by someone who grasps how loose technology is and how hard, just from a technical standpoint that would be, not to mention the moral implications.
I spot a typo. You forgot the PhD in front of his name.
Oh yes. No, I'm sorry. That's not. That's not a PhD. That's a little footnote remarking on Here's what I love. One of the things I love. The Argus Leader did this story. The only photo they could find of this guy, this Chris Seaver, is a 2013 mugshot that he got while he was stalking country music star John Rich with threatening emails, according to police reports.
Wow.
The guy that wrote this bill also has some legal training, but has been barred from practicing law by the State Bar Association of his home state of Tennessee. And it's specifically on the grounds of mental illness. He's no longer allowed to practice law. So I'm just kind of yeah, so a literal banned crazy person from out of state comes in, and still, here's what really bugs me about this story, because right now the guy's just kind of funny and ridiculous, but the fact that this got brought into our state legislature as a serious bill, there were legislators who were this man foaming at the mouth talking about country music stars eating his thoughts, he seems legit. I will take this law and pass it that he asked me to pass. So it failed in committee, thank God. At least we're not that stupid. But it was 7-4. That means 4 people in that committee thought this is a total... Well, first off...
So 2 abstained?
They were excused, so I don't know if they had like other meetings or stuff like that.
Probably screwing each other or interns.
So that says 4 people thought he was a stand-up kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's 4 people who were like, yeah, we need to do this. We need to we need a Chinese-style Great Firewall of South Dakota and to like suspend sales of all electronic devices at Target, Walmart, suspend the internet. Literally, like, they had like 2 crazy obscure people that this guy brought with him to speak on behalf of it in the committee meeting, and the entire rest was like the head of the Retailers Association, every major internet company in South Dakota, every major technology company in South Dakota, the AC. I mean, just like literally, it was like a gallery full of like people came in, and it was like, this is the stupidest thing we have ever seen. We are all dumber for having read it. I mean, you should go into the article and read the comments from the head of the State Retailers Association. He's just like, we don't want to touch this with a 10-foot goddamn pole, you know? It's just, yeah, it was some colorful testimony about, you know, needing to not do this. So, you know, and here's the deal. It's like, even guys that were in this committee that voted against it are like, well, on the basis of the opponents indicate that, you know, this bill really hasn't been through the right process for its stakeholders, and at least in South Dakota. So this would be a good law somewhere else. You know, they have no moral objection to the idea that you would like censor the internet and put monitoring devices on every internet device in the state. They're like, well, that seems legit. If it's just too hard to do, but we'd love to be able to like completely control everything you see and hear and tax it accordingly. And yeah, I
can't blame it all on the religion, because they're just like homophobes, because it's the transgender bill, and it's, you know, it's or the bathroom bill, and it's this and anything dealing with something sexual, and they are willing to hear out banning it. Our Senate, our elected officials are something.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at the stories we covered at the beginning with the poverty and the jailing, it's just like all these people who seriously need help at the state government level, and instead our legislators, they, like you said, there's a gender bill again. I think this one's for sports. It's not even a bathroom one. It's a transgender athletes thing.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll get to that, because that's the other thing, is that they've stacked the deck this year with blank bills that they've put in the docket, so that at the last minute they can throw stuff on it. So you'll have to really watch the legislature on the final day, because that'll be people furiously writing in their amendments to their stuff they passed before, so they can piggyback it in at the very last day. A record number, though, something like 38 of those bills.
That's so weird.
Yeah, just like, you know, that seems like legit, transparent democracy. Even Kristi Noem is like, that's not transparent. That's not how we do things, blah, blah, blah. Which, we'll get to Kristi Noem, because, yeah. Here's the second and last story we're going to cover here.
I've got to wait for her. She's coming to your door. She's coming to all of our doors.
Is she on next week?
Yeah, that ship has probably sailed. We almost had her on when she was running for governor, but we couldn't make it work with her schedule and stuff. So, but okay. So if you've been following the legalized industrial hemp thing that's been going on, okay, I literally this morning as I'm researching it, I went like her website, her social media, where she has a post that's just like, here are the dangers of legalizing industrial hemp. Yeah. On her own page, the comment section, and I realize it's completely unscientific, but this should be like her like base. Like if you go to a politician's own page and they say something, you'll get a few like trolls, but mostly it'll be like, yeah, you know, you fight for me, blah, blah, blah. And no, there's like no one even on her own page. There's like I've counted like 3 out of 73 comments on it, and the rest were just like, this is dumb, this is stupid, you know, South Dakota farmers are ready for it. I got a kick out of the fact that not only did they, this pass in the House after she told them the first time to cut it out, not do it, it passed by 65-2 in the House. So if it passes like by any kind of margin like that in the Senate, that will blow right through a veto if that's what her plan is. So, and I think it's interesting because the Argus Leader did a great story where they're talking about Kristi Noem squandering her political capital, and talked earlier this week how she even had a thing where she called in the legislators in a late night meeting, the heads of it, and basically took them to the tool shed and chewed them out about bringing in this stupid culture war stuff and wanting more substantive bills from the legislature instead of who can go to what bathroom and crap like that. But she's like, on the one hand, she did that at the beginning of the week, and then halfway through the week, she's just like super dug in on this industrial hemp thing. I just wonder why. Why would you defend it this much when it's like your own party is like 1,000%, let's do this. The opposition party is 1,000%, let's do this. What is the end game here? Because Kristi is not stupid. She doesn't, and she's a pragmatist, big time, clearly. So I don't understand why unless, obviously you get the trolley comments about big pharma money and stuff like that being contributors. So I don't know.
I mean, maybe she is just trolling the people. If she's getting all negative, and it's on Facebook, is where you're saying this is?
Oh yeah,
or just on her website.
This was one of the posts on her Facebook page.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe she just does it for that. I mean, I guess I didn't. Did you look at the? Did you comb over the comments? Regarding her, open carry shit or her hidden conceal.
I haven't even had time to do the open carry thing.
That's
which,
fair.
Yeah, I actually don't have a problem with the open carry thing.
No, nor do I. So I was just wondering if maybe. Yeah,
did she have objections to that or something? Or I would have thought she would have been on board with that.
Oh no, she's on board with it. I was just wondering if she had any negative feedback, but I'm thinking probably not. Because, I mean, it was a bullshit thing.
Yeah.
I felt neither one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm happy for it. I feel like it saves me paperwork, every 4 years you have to renew your pistol permit or whatever. And I do like they're also working on reciprocity, so you'll still need a permit if you want to go out of state with your handgun.
Yeah.
And get other states to recognize it. It's like, okay, that makes sense, because other states have other rules. It's federalism. We know how this works.
So what's her beef with industrial hemp? Why?
I'm glad you asked, Brian.
What's her beef?
Well, listen, we're halfway through the legislative session vote, but I want to be clear that I have some very real concerns about moving forward with any industrial hemp legislation this year. And let me share a little bit why I have those concerns. South Dakota is not ready for industrial hemp today. We're not ready from an agricultural perspective. We do not have dollars budgeted to set up a licensing program, to have inspectors out on the ground, to have GPS locations of plots located, and to be able to make sure that we're spot checking where these plots could be and where.
So is the takeaway from that we're going to have GPS, if she'd allow it, it'd be with GPS trackers on every plant and kind of crazy shit?
Oh, she's worried that people are going to grow marijuana.
Oh yeah, that's her. As we go through this, that's her grand thesis is that people will mix regular marijuana into it, and she wants to be able to, for the highway patrol to be able to do spot checks on the plants that will immediately tell them what the THC level is in the hemp that they're transporting and stuff like that.
Where the product would be grown and how we would market and process and transport it as well. Also, when we look at it, the plant looks exactly like the marijuana plant because it is the same plant as a marijuana plant. So when you look at a public safety standpoint, I have grave concerns there as well. First of all, we don't have any federal guidelines from USDA, so we do not know what a commodity program would look like or what instructions we would get from the federal government to move forward as an agriculture commodity. But on the public side,
it's not stopping every other ag state in the country.
Side of it, my concerns are that we don't have a roadside test to test THC levels, so our law enforcement officers would only have a visual test to determine if there was industrial hemp or marijuana moving up and down our roadways, and because it is the same plant and looks exactly the same, that would be incredibly challenging for them. Drug dogs will also tip off on industrial hemp just like they will on marijuana, so that will not be a tool that we'll be able to utilize. We do have some equipment at the state lab that can run tests on industrial hemp. However, it cannot indicate to us what level of THC might be in that product. So it will not be helpful in letting us determine if it is industrial hemp or if it has violated the standards which would be acceptable. And then also, we aren't sure if pesticides could be used on this product. We don't know if we could control it and keep it within its own plots where it's going to be grown.
Fun fact, hemp is native to South Dakota and used to grow wild here quite extensively. So even though nowadays, because of the law, we treat it as an invasive species, it's actually a native species to this area. Which I guess now I see why she's worried, because yes, it will spread like crazy because it grows really well here. Damn, that'd be really terrible if we had a crop that grew really, really well here because it was in its natural climate.
And then we also have grave concerns from a family and from a social side of this issue. Industrial hemp is opening the door to marijuana distribution in South Dakota. I am 100% convinced that this would open the pathway for that to happen, and that if we did move forward without being adequately prepared, that we'd be back here within a couple of years having a discussion about the inability to enforce transportation, the inability for our law enforcement officers to determine the difference, and that we'd be having a conversation on if we should allow marijuana to be transported. So,
But you dumb bitch, you solve your problem if you open up the weed shops and make that legal, and then everything's legal, and then we're making money off of both. You solved it. I'm sorry. I shut up, Gnome. God damn it, Gnome.
What? It's just
God damn it, South Dakota.
They figured this out in so many other states. Why does South Dakota have to be? Why are we so dumb?
The slow kid.
Why are we dumb?
The slow northern kid with the weird accent.
Yeah. Don't you know?
Just smells like corn.
Every discussion I've had, and I've been in public office now for many, many years, and I've had many discussions with social workers, with addiction treatment counselors, with families that have been devastated by drugs and addiction, and
I'm sure the drugs that devastated those families were marijuana.
Across the board, overwhelmingly, they tell me that marijuana is a gateway drug.
Marijuana?
That it is a drug that if they're dealing with a type of an addiction issue, that marijuana has been a part of that introduction into that person's life. And they have asked me not to consider legalizing marijuana. I believe if we move ahead with industrial hemp, and we aren't prepared with it from a regulatory standpoint, from an enforcement standpoint, if we don't have the equipment or the dollars to do this correctly, that we will be opening the door to allowing marijuana to be legalized in the state of South Dakota.
I hate her. Oh, God.
And here's the deal. It's like recently there have been some studies on the whole gateway drug thing. Because that's a philosophy that like was in favor really big in the 80s and 90s. And then more recent research said that it was total bullshit. And now there's some more recent
like people
research.
who did the research. There was no research in the 80s and 90s. There was crack in the 80s and 90s. And that's just cocaine.
Well, here's where I'm going with this. Because Psychology Today, there's an article that I've got linked in the show notes now that kind of explains that marijuana is a gateway drug where it is illegal. Because the reason that it becomes the gateway is because you're dealing with some disreputable back alley dealer who's like, hey, while you're here, you should try this. Well, a one-stop shop for like hard drugs.
If you go to jail, you're displaced and you're out of a job, and like you're gonna have to. You're just gonna have a shittier life, basically.
And there hasn't been enough time for like major, like large swath studies, but they're working on them. And so far, with the smaller studies, states where they've legalized it, like Colorado, it's just like marijuana is not a gateway drug because guess what? Going to a legal dispensary to get an edible somehow doesn't lead to a crack habit.
What?
I know. It's just
crazy.
Craziness.
Devil's lettuce.
So yes, the devil's lettuce. So here's my big thesis statement on the headlines this week. It's like there's real stories out there. There's real people who are hurting, kids who are having seizures who the CBD oil that she thinks is the devil's lettuce oil, would help. And here's what our state legislature does. They twiddle their thumbs. They spend way too much time obsessed with sex and kids, which, little creepy state legislature, a little creepy, You're always worried about where people are going to the bathroom. You're always worried about what they're doing.
Who they kneel into?
Little stalkery, I gotta say.
I don't have any faith in any of these people until they die, and then maybe we might have a government that does something in South Dakota. I'll be gone. I'm just saying, guys. I don't know. Maybe I'll come back by that time. Oh God, that'd be sad if it's not happening till I retire. Ooh, that'd be a dark next 40 years for South Dakota.
Who knows, man? The future's a fickle bitch, and I do not try to predict it at all. I gave up after Trump won. I kind of I'm like, history's screwed. I don't care. All these history books I own, they're nothing. Burn them all. It doesn't matter. Cats will chase dogs now, and planes fly upside down. And it used to be crazy.
You would go fishing, and you would either catch fish or you wouldn't. Now it's you either catch fish or you won't, or your car will end up in the lake. That's just kind of the world.
That's the world we live in. So anyway, that's my Grandmaster thesis is some of you that listen, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but, talk to your rep, but if you get to talk to them, if they're not hiding behind a phone or just hiding in their office or whatever, if you get to talk to them, ask them why we spend so much time on this stupid bullshit and why we don't do something for the massive the lost generation of children coming up in poverty in South Dakota, and why we don't do something about helping the mentally ill. And here's a big one: healthcare. That problem hasn't gone away, guys. Anytime you want to step in and do your fucking job. Anyway, and soapbox rant over.
As when you're finishing up, ask them, "Oh, but what were you doing?" And when they say anything other than I was helping the people of South Dakota, you say, what the fuck? Fuck. You're out here getting coffee. You should be out here getting coffee for South Dakotans. It's extra cream shots, extra shots. Extra, not the cream shots, but...
It's very extra.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm at on that, that's just too bad, because I know there's a lot of people with ALS, MS, epilepsy that have done that, and they're better. It's sad.
Yeah,
medicine in other states, but a reason to be thrown into jail in this state.
You were in Vermilion?
Yeah.
Did you ever go to Mr. Smith's? Sandwich shop down there?
I did not.
Mr. Smith's, it was in Jones grocery store.
No,
famous sandwiches.
Seriously, I know nothing of this.
Larry Smith was a cop out on the East Coast, and he moved here and started a bakery, started a sandwich shop. Anyways, he suffered with ALS for many years, and there's actually a documentary about him. He rode his bike, one of those bikes you lay in, all the way across the state to raise awareness for it. Anyways, he went down to Colorado when marijuana was legalized, and they showed a video of when he was shaking, and after a couple minutes, he was normal. I mean, he didn't even shake, and it was unbelievable to see that.
Yeah, and I've seen the videos of the kids.
Yeah,
there's children who are
when they have epilepsy and stuff. Yeah,
and the oil within minutes, and they're stabilized, and I'm just kind of every minute we hold that away from people in that condition, we're monsters.
And the parents who have to get that illegally, it's
that's really dangerous. Yeah,
none of it.
Get your kids taken away from you, and then it's all. Yeah, it's pretty terrible for the citizens of South Dakota. But hey, that's who we elected.
Yep.
I don't know who we are, but we did it.
We did it.
Yeah, we earned this. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
I don't know, we're attracting one particular type of person, I guess. I don't know. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Another topic for another time, maybe, to figure out what we do. What wrong with South Dakota? What do?
How?
So enough of this stuff. Let's pick it up a little bit for somebody who's going to bring us a little bit of hope here. Let's talk to Bryan here in our Page 2 interview segment. So as you turn at the top of the show, our guest today is Bryan Anfinson of 100 Plus Men Who Care, Sioux Empire Chapter. Bryan, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, the organization. Fill us in.
Sure. So, my name's Bryan. I live here in Sioux Falls, and I decided to start a chapter here about a year ago. And basically what 100 Plus Men Who Cares is, it's a fraternal organization. There's several chapters across the United States. And what we do is we practice microphilanthropy, where we gather 100 plus men. We have a event once a quarter, and 100 men plus come. They donate $100, and structured into about 100 minutes. We try to keep it pretty simple, pretty short. We spend the first 45 minutes socializing, networking. There's usually food catered, cash bar at our venues. So what we do is we pick 3 local organizations here in Sioux Falls and the surrounding area. We vet them, we make sure they're local and in good standing, and we pick them prior to the event at random, 3. And what we do is we invite each rep to come over to the event, give a speech about their organization, and then our members will take a vote on which charity deserves our financial contribution. Now, we do a little bit different than most chapters across the states. So most chapters will donate all the money to the one charity. So we do it a little different. We give about 80% to the charity that gets the most votes, and then we split the remainder 20 to the remainder 2. So we just felt that everyone should go away with something. So the concept's pretty simple, but it has a huge impact. Again, it's microphilanthropy. $100, 100 men, that's $10,000. And we can raise $10,000 in one night, give to a charity. That's a big impact.
Not bad.
For somebody that needs it. So, we try to make it as simple as possible. I know a lot of people will think, well, I want to help, but what can I do? Most people think, well, I have to give a lot of money to help. So we do it. It's basically a compounding effect. The more men we have at our event, the more members we have, the more good we can do. It's all nonprofit. Everybody on our board, it's all volunteer based. We don't receive any kind of income or profit from it. And we just donate the money to them and write out a check, and that's that. So pretty simple.
So have you had any of the events yet?
We did. We had one back in October. That was our first event.
Okay.
We had, it was our first event, so we had about 60 men show up, 60 members, and that was 60,000, or, sorry, my math's a little off this morning. That was about $6,000 that we gave to a charity here in town.
That's still huge for a one night, just boom.
Yeah. And we had members come up and give money to the other organizations. We had one organization where it was dealing with the loss of a child, and for me that hit home, and I wanted to help him out, so I gave him $100, and I know there was a couple other people there that gave him money as well. So it's great. It's very fulfilling, and I started this a little over a year ago. I have a friend down in Iowa City who has a chapter, and
good town.
Yeah, Iowa City. Yeah, and he's been doing it for about 5 years, and the way it's grown, it's unbelievable. He's gotten the University of Iowa involved. He had Kirk Ferentz, the football coach, University of Iowa.
Sure.
Some of their events, talking, some athletes. They have probably close to about 200 members. So I saw that, and I wanted to do something positive. I can't change the world, but I wanted to at least start somewhere. It can change it for somebody. So it was just something that, you watch the news and you get depressed, and it's like, man, there's got to be something. you got to do something positive in this world. So I, just by random, I had actually met with a client of mine for the first time, and we just started talking about it because he has a background in charity. And I brought this up to him, and he was hooked automatically. He's like, "Oh, let's get started." So, really having him help me really got this off the ground. And I had other people who heard about it and they wanted to get involved. So we spent about a year just getting it ready. We met up about once a month for an hour and just went over the guidelines, went over what we wanted to do, the structure, getting sponsorships, because that's where we get our money from for venue and for food, for catering. And we decided to have our first event in October, and it was good. We were surprised that many people showed up, and we expect more to show in our next event here in February. So,
when is this event here in February?
Yeah, so our next event is the 26th, Tuesday, from 5:30 to 7 at the Holiday Inn here in downtown Sioux Falls. And we have food catered, and there's going to be a cash bar. So we invite any men who care to join. If you can spare $100 every 4 months or every 3 months, we certainly love to have anybody that'll, want to attend. So it's a good time. We always have fun. So,
what were some of the, you may have mentioned these a little offhand, what were some of the charities you helped or worked with on the first event?
So last event we had was Survive It, which helped with people with cancer, research here in South Dakota. There was the one who won is I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's a ministry here in town that helps women with children for shelter, daycare, food.
Sure.
Provide them with housing and all that. And so our next events, we actually have those picked out. It's a banquet, which I'm sure most people know about here in town. Shift 115, which helps. It's basically a community effort for pastors and people of religion to come together and just basically a community atmosphere where you get the leaders of these churches or whatever organizations and come together and just share their ideas and wisdom. And then the New Haven Counseling here in town. So those are our three that we have lined up, and we are expecting all three to show up and kind of give a speech for our next event.
Very cool. Let's see. You've kind of like hit all the main bullet points along the way here. So I'm just like,
we'll see you later.
Well, good job. See you later.
You covered that one.
Let's see. So you mentioned a little bit
Is it dudes only then?
Yeah, so it is a fraternal organization. There is a women's chapter here in Sioux Falls.
Oh, is that 100 women?
It's 100 women who care, yeah.
Okay, cool.
They've actually been around for a few years, from my understanding, and I actually met with two of the ladies that run that when I first started this, just to get some ideas. Yeah, we wanted to keep it kind of like a fellowship, fraternity, kind of, not fraternity, but a fraternal, organization. Nothing against women or anything. We just wanted to keep it, just kind of a guys group. Again, there is a women's group, so we encourage you listeners out there, if you are a woman, to join that. And they do essentially the same thing. The only difference I think they do is they meet twice a year.
Okay.
So again, we meet once a quarter. Social event. We try to have fun while doing it, and there is a social and kind of networking aspect to it. A lot of members they own small businesses, or they just want to give back, because $100, I mean, it's not really a lot of money, especially if you break it down, every couple months. That's $400 a year, where you can participate in, essentially giving, $10,000 each time. And again, that's that compound effect where you get a group of guys, you put in $100 into a pot, and you can do a lot of good. And there's no membership dues, there's no cost to join, just except for the $100.
Do I get a decoder ring?
What's that?
Do I get a decoder ring?
Well, we're working on swag. So
Thank you for the pander.
Yeah, no, we're working on something that working on T-shirts and stuff that we want to do eventually. But again, that's our biggest challenge right now, is just getting the word out, not only for members to join, but just sponsors, really, because that's what helps us get the venues, get the food, eventually. Do T-shirts. We've gotten someone who's going to help us with like Yeti mugs, and just stuff like that, where it's just nice to have that and sell it and use those proceeds for bigger events.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So right now our database, I mean, for memberships, we have maybe 130 people or men, but we hope to past that and get past 100 each event, and every event we hope that they show up. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. We want them to come and get involved and meet somebody they've never met before, and maybe make a business connection or make a friend or something. That's part of it too. So we just really want to give back. It's the biggest thing. It's talking to the members, and why they joined is they wanted to help, they wanted to give back, they wanted to do something positive and good, and just a small donation like that can really affect and do a lot of good here in Sioux Falls, and that's just the main goal, is to help out. It really is.
That's cool. I like the idea, because I like the micro philanthropy, because it's just like it's not just one giant figurehead writing one giant check and getting a press conference
and getting press for it.
This is like it brings a community to it.
Yeah,
it's just like there's an underpinning of that. It's like a plurality of people are like putting their energy and weight into it. I also like at the beginning of the podcast we're talking about, and I'm so frustrated about things like childhood poverty, mental illness, stuff like that. Things that people in the state struggle with, and it's just like we can sit here on the podcast and bitch at people to vote, and to be like rail at the politician, rail at it's like you could do that for so long, and you should do that. You should definitely be active in that. But I feel like if you yourself want to step up and do something about things like we're talking about at the beginning of the podcast, I feel like an organization like this is a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going back to why I started it is just, you watch the news and you just get depressed, and that's what, I think it was just, I think it was after a school shooting or something where I was just like, oh man, this is just, it's just sad, and it's hard not to do anything about it. And it just took a little effort just to kind of say, okay, let's think of something positive. We're not going to change the world problems, but we're going to start somewhere, and you got to start somewhere.
It gets into that you're not going to change the world, but you will change the world of a handful.
Yeah,
of
you can change somebody's world with this. I mean, that $6,000 we raised last event, that went to women and children in need who, had, probably abusive relationship or couldn't pay, they had a car expense, so they couldn't pay their rent. Stuff like that. It's people come down on hard times, and they just need a little help. And, that's why, these charities are here to help people. And most people want to help, but they don't know how, or they think, well, I got to give you $1,000 just to do a difference. Well, no, I mean, you can start small and collab with other men and give back. So we feel it's a good organization, and we hope to continue to grow. And our main thing is being new, is just getting the word out and getting people aware of it. We've had a lot of people reach out and ask questions on it, and by the time we explain it to them, they understand it, and they say, well, it's not a bad idea. So, and I was really surprised actually that Sioux Falls didn't have a chapter, because I know it's been around for a while. Omaha has one, Sioux City, Minneapolis, of course, Iowa City.
All the cool kids are doing it.
All the
we
cool
need to
kids.
Get on board.
Yeah, it's typical South Dakota. We're 3 years behind.
Yep.
No. And, I saw what my friend Leighton Smith down in Iowa City, I grew up with Leighton, and he is probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. Very humble, he's just so successful in life, and he's involved with all these extra activities, and he's part of the community down there in Iowa City, and he has time to do this. And I thought I could at least try. I'd like to get up to that point where they're doing the Hawkeye chapter down in Iowa City. I mean, they're doing events down at the football field in the summer, and they have all these guys come out, they let them go out on the field, and it's an amazing thing, and they have block parties.
Been on that field, that'd be quite the event.
Yeah, I was there September for not my first, but one of my for a football game for Iowa Hawkeyes, and it was it's an amazing place to be. And it's just it was really cool that they got the University of Iowa involved, and these huge sponsors that really want to help. They see the value in it, and that's what we'd like to eventually get to is to that monster where it's you got these huge sponsors that are like, yeah, we'll write you a check and you can have it at the Sanford Center, So that's our goal. I mean, we don't want to get it where it's complicated or too much of a work, but the more men that are involved, that's the main thing. We just try to keep it as simple as possible. The more men that are involved, the more good we can do, and that's really the message that we're trying to get out there is to encourage men to become members and at least come to an event, see if you like it or not, and see what it can do. And it feels really good to write that check, because we write the checks out that night, and it felt good to write a check for $6,000 to a charity. And I mean, it might be selfish of me, but it was one of the most fulfilling things that I've done in my adult life is helping them. And I think most people are naturally want to help and they want to do good. So it really all came together that first event. It really, you do all that planning and it was a lot of work. I was kind of surprised by that. It was a lot of work to get it started and get the venues all set up and get board members involved and go out and get sponsors and advertising. Just getting the word out was tough, but it's gotten easier where I think more people are telling their friends about it and their brothers and fathers, and we had a lot of people come up to us after the first event, and we're really, really, really happy that they came. A lot of them they didn't really quite understand the concept of it, and like $100, what's this going to? So we explained it to them when they walked in, because a lot of people did bring friends and they didn't quite get it, but after the event they felt really good because they were involved. They were a collective group of people that just helped a charity in town, and they were involved. It wasn't for them. It's $6,000 that wouldn't have gone to them. So it's been great. So we hope to have it grow and get more members involved and more sponsors backed up with us. And we are looking always for members and definitely sponsors too to help with the cost of renting out a room for a night. having food for our members, and stuff like that. So any little bit helps. And again, we all do this on volunteer basis. We have probably about 6 members that come regularly to our board meetings, and they all delegate something different. So and it's nice because they all come from different fields and different businesses where they have certain connections to advertising, or certain connections to we had somebody who printed our banners for free. We had somebody who worked at, I think, Budweiser, who does all the what do you call them? Not signs, but posters, banners, yeah. And she did it for us for free. She designed them and didn't charge us. So
nice.
Yeah. I think she charges like $30, but that was just for her time, but for material and everything.
I was gonna say, as a former sign shop manager, it's like like $140 savings there. So that's nice, or more depending on the size.
It was bigger than that one.
Okay, then massive. Probably more than 140.
Yeah. So that's basically our organization, and again, our next event is February 26th. 26th, yeah. From 5:30 to 7. We keep it short, keep it on 100 minutes, so you can get back home to your family. And there's food available. We heavy hors d'oeuvres, and there's a cash bar. We encourage people to have a couple drinks and just talk to somebody they've never met before, and maybe make a connection and business connection, and be involved. So it is it's a great group to be involved in, and it is fulfilling. I mean, I truly enjoy it. It's a lot of time invested in it. It's been a great experience so far, and I've met a lot of different people and a lot of good people, and it's exciting to see people get excited about it, and so.
Excellent. I think this is a good point to segue into shameless plugs.
The Sioux Empire Podcast proudly presents this week's Shameless Plugs.
Now, Brian, I know you're going to feel like you kind of just already did that, but this is the point of the show where we condense it down to where can people find you, social media, websites, stuff like that.
Sure.
When is your next event? Just a quick boilerplate of stuff you want them to know.
So we have our Facebook page. It's 100 Plus Men Who Care, Sioux Empire Chapter. You can go on there. We've had a lot of people message us through that. That's probably the easiest way. You can call me directly or text. My number is 605-670-9846. And that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. We do have our contact information. Our email is siouxempire100mwc@gmail.com too. If you want to email us any information on or any inquiries on that. But most of our mission statement and what we are and who we are and what we do is on our Facebook page. It's probably the best way to contact us, easiest way anyway.
Perfect.
And our next event is February 26th from 5:30 to 7 at the Holiday Inn in downtown Sioux Falls. I believe we're on the first floor. We'll have one of our awesome banners point the way, and they've been great. We've been contacted other venues, and they've been really easy to work with, and we're willing to drop some additional charges just to help us out because we are a nonprofit. And I mean, they gave us the bare minimum for renting out a room and helped us out with some cost for food. And there is one caveat: there is a cash bar, and we do need to make our $400 drink minimum. So if you do attend, have a couple drinks. We want people to have a good time, of course, and within reason of responsibility, of course. But we do encourage.
Otherwise, you personally have to drink $400 of booze.
Well, either that or pay for it, but I'd rather drink it. Yeah. So yeah, we encourage people to stop by a little early or have a drink or two, and just kind of go around and introduce yourself and have a good time. Really, it's about having a good time, having fun while doing some good. So that's the main thing. And if you're a man who cares and has a big heart, please attend and, bring a friend. If we would have just encouraged people to bring a friend last time, we would have had well over 100, I think. So if you have a coworker, a brother, a colleague, a father, a son, anybody who you think would, want to attend and who cares, invite them over. And, we encourage you to do that. And if it's not for them, that's fine. But most men membership will have elected to come back with our registration. So we haven't had anybody really say this isn't for me or think it was not a good idea. So but yeah, we encourage people to bring somebody with them and have a good time.
Sounds good.
Rob, do you have any shameless plugs? No, I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go. I'm going to shamelessly plug my wonderful fiance, who is at home right now, making preparations for our wedding. Thank you, honey. I love you. And, I'm podcasting hard.
Nice. I like that one. My shameless plug, as always, is all of the great podcasts here in the Sioux Empire Podcast Network. Be sure to check out Urban Indians has been having some hilarious episodes, so be sure to check that out. Dress Code, as always, is fantastic. I promise new Macabre Grimoire episodes are coming. Our schedules have just been ridiculous since 2019, but we do have a recording session set up this Tuesday, so I promise there are episodes coming. We are not gone yet. And obviously, there's here on the Sioux Empire Podcast. You can support all these great podcasts at patreon.com/Sioux Falls. And as always, a huge Patreon thank you to Matt Paulson, one of our Patreon contributors. Let's see. My own personal shameless plug this week, I'm probably going to do The Umbrella Academy. That was on Netflix. It was better than I expected. Because I didn't know, I knew nothing about it. I've never read the comics. I didn't even know it was a comic that existed or whatever. But it's a really interesting, weird, which I like weird, I like sci-fi show. So check that out. And thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for coming on. Thank you for being here, Seth.
Thanks.
And thank you all to all of our great listeners. We love you, and we will see you all next week.
See you later.